Hello, I'm Bill O'Donnell, and welcome to another program on spirituality. Today in the studio, I have one of my oldest friends in town, Brother Jim Brown of the Christian Brothers at the College of Santa Fe, who is the campus minister currently at Santa Fe Community College. Welcome, Brother Jim.
Thanks very much, Bill.
We've been talking about doing this program for, 10 years or more, but our schedules haven't worked together, so it's been great. But I wanted Brother Jim to come in because I believe it's an important topic for those of you at home to consider for a moment the pressures that are under students today, particularly at the college level, and Jim's had a lot of experience, so I thought I'd invite him in to come in and tell you what you can do at home to support you and your family and friends who are currently studying, either part-time or full-time, at a college of their choice. So Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Tell us about yourself. You are a Christian brother. Give us a little background on your order and how you became one.
Okay. I'm a Christian brother, as we refer to it now, a de La Salle Christian brother. De La Salle is the French priest who started us in France in the late 1600s. I'm from here in Santa Fe. I grew up here and went to St. Mike, which is a Christian Brothers high school here in town, and got interested in the brothers because of that, and joined the brothers quite a while ago, in the mid-1950s. And since that time, I've just been doing various things, various jobs within the Christian Brothers organization, as well as certain jobs maybe outside. And Christian Brothers are basically an educational group, so we work education almost exclusively. But that means all kind of various jobs in that education field.
So, but if I met you, you were the head of Big Brother, Big Sisters. How long ago? It was 20 years ago at least.
Well, I was working for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and it was just kind of an interim thing. Very good. And of course, there's an educational component in Big Brothers, Big Sisters too. So I certainly fit into that. But I didn't realize that's when we met. But yeah, that's been a little while back.
Yeah. So campus ministry, that's a special form of teaching in a way, or education. It's almost more like counselor in a way, isn't it?
Yes, there's certainly a lot of counseling involved in it. It really varies a lot in what it does, but it tries to provide spiritual support, if you will, for not only students, but certainly primarily students, but not only students within a college setting, but also the faculty, staff, administration of a given college that campus ministry happens to be operating in. And that would include things like in full campus ministry, let's say, things like in full, say, Catholic campus ministry, things like Catholic liturgy, prayer sessions, maybe Bible study, maybe other type study. Again, depending on the university and depending on where a particular need is in a particular college or university. I'm fond of saying I've been in this most of the last 35 years in various places. And I doubt that I've had two similar days in that entire time. And that's fine, because there's just, you have to kind of meet the needs as they arise. That's really what it comes down to.
All right. Because I've noticed that here on the campus of the Santa Fe Community College, often it's almost like the ministry of presence. You know, you're there, there's a sign out, anybody who wants to come can give you a call, or just walk up, right?
That's pretty much, yes. Here at the community college, I'm only here a couple of days a week. And yes, it's mostly a matter of presence. Because at a community college, and I'll compare it with other jobs I've had, but at a community college, because they are commuters, obviously, the students and even a lot of your faculty and staff are not there on a regular daily basis. Because of that, people don't have time necessarily, say, to get together and go to a mass or something like that, or get together and have a particular type of study group or something. And I think that's even true for the community college itself. To get a group together of people who are maybe taking only a couple of courses, who may have a job, may have a family and stuff like that, it's hard to do. So yes, there's a certain amount of presence just being available to people so they can come and check out, talk to you, maybe bring up problems, whatever they want to do. And the other big thing here at the community college is trying to let them know what's going on in Santa Fe in the various communities. Now, I'm hired by the Catholic Archdiocese, but because I'm the only campus minister who's regularly here on campus, I've made myself available for any of the religions in Santa Fe, and there are many religions in Santa Fe, as those of us who live here know. So they can give me information about what's going on in their communities, and I can pass that information on to people here at the community college, which is why, for instance, I have a display table a couple of times a month with information that they can pick up, and they can talk to me and ask me questions about what's going on in various communities. So I kind of know what, and I try and keep up to date on what's going on, at least in some of them, or at least I can refer them to communities that I may not be totally aware of myself.
And contrary to maybe what most Catholics would think, you're very ecumenical. I've been involved with you in ecumenical groups. So and the one thing about Santa Fe you can say is a very ecumenical town. There's a lot of interaction between various religions, and I've heard from our old friend Rabbi Hellman that Santa Fe is unique almost in that way. Is that your experience?
Pretty much so. Unique, I'd say, in the sense that one of my quotes, it's not a quote that I want to be quoted on, but it's a quote, is probably any religion that ever existed has at least one representative in Santa Fe. So there's a lot going on here in town.
Yeah.
And Santa Fe is not only religious-wise, but is very accepting anyway. So in that sense, it's unique. It has, for a relatively small city, it has a lot of religious and faith community type organizations. And yet there's a lot of acceptance. Yes, Santa Fe is still very heavily Catholic just because of its history, but there's a lot of acceptance. So it's unique in that sense. I would say, too, that I mean, I've been in other cities where there's been a lot of ecumenical work going on, within the city. Maybe not quite as broadly in terms of the number of faith communities involved as in Santa Fe, but certainly involvement.
Yeah. Well, I remember in my own case when I went off to college, and I started at a community college, it seemed to be a period of time where I was less interested in my religion of origin and less attracted there. And quite frankly, there weren't many programs designed for us. I don't remember ever meeting a campus minister at any time. Tell us a little bit about what it's like in your experience. What are some of the problems that students of all ages, when they're going off to college, what are the types of things that you're encountering, and what has been your response for them?
Yeah, I would say certainly it's still true that college students, generally, at least the traditional age students, they're looking for an identity. I mean, that's kind of why they're going to college, first of all. So I think that includes a sense of their religion. If they came out of a very religious family, for instance, they may be checking, well, do I still believe in that? Do I still want to do that? If they didn't come out of a religious family, they may say, well, I hear my co-students talking about spirituality or something. What does that mean? What does it mean for me? That's what the students. And I think that's where, and that's really why I like being in campus ministry on a college level, because that search for identity in general, and the search for a religious or spiritual identity that very often sneaks in there on them, is part of that.
And I imagine people are experiencing, problems at home. I mean, there's usually pressure when you're going to college, particularly if you're commuting and you're living at home, you've got family at home, so you're almost living two lives at one time, being a student and your normal life, especially if you're working. What types of things have you encountered with those kinds of students?
Well, yeah, again, it's somewhat similar in the sense that, say, an older student who's coming to the community college here, very often they're doing that, especially if the economy happens to be bad as it happens to be right now. They want to get some way to better themselves. So they'll come and study at a college to try and get a degree that they may not have, or to enhance their degree if they do have the degree, that kind of thing. So very often it's because they want to get a better working situation. So in that sense, they're also searching for something. They're trying to better themselves in some way or another. And so that may connect with some of their own religious experience. They may be trying to, as they do that, they may find they want to understand their own religion, or maybe some other religions, in a deeper sense as well. So it kind of combines itself. So it's not just the traditional age students, but it's really, and here at the community college, it's almost the very reason they come to the college is that search.
I want to go back for a minute, because a lot of people aren't that familiar with the Christian Brothers, but the truth is they were one of the first education groups that came into the state after the area now known as New Mexico came under the purview of the United States government. Tell us about the history of the Christian Brothers, just in a nutshell, and how they got going.
Well, other than what I mentioned in terms of them starting in France and then spread throughout the world after the 1600s, but say here in New Mexico, I think that's what you're referring to primarily. Yeah, when New Mexico was still a territory in the mid-1850s, Bishop Lamy, who was the first bishop and then Archbishop of Santa Fe, wanted to get some education started here in the territory. First in, I think it was 1853, I might be off on my date, invited the Sisters of Loretto, basically to take care of the young girls in the territory.
And they came out by covered wagon and everything from Kentucky, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I think one of them even died on the trip
I believe
into
that's
here.
true, yeah.
You know. Shortly thereafter, Bishop Lamy, being French, knew the Christian brothers, the De La Salle Christian brothers from France, and wanted them to come here and start to educate the young men in the area. So they basically, 4 brothers came in 1857 or so, and started in 1859 what is St. Michael's High School right now. Mm-hmm. And so basically the high school's been going for 150 years now, and grew from really what was just a one adobe building, small thing, into a very notable high school right now. So that's how the Christian brothers came in. And I said that's how I happened to meet him, because I was in Santa Fe and went to St. Mike's. Yeah. So yeah, our history here in New Mexico has been since the mid-1850s, as I said. And then since that time, too, what became the College of Santa Fe was also started by the Christian brothers. By the time I was in college, I was already a brother, and that's where I went to school at the College of Santa Fe. So those 2 endeavors really were the primary, as far as the brothers were concerned, the primary push for education here in the territory and then the state of New Mexico. In fact, the college, what became the College of Santa Fe, actually was given, it was able to operate since 1874 under a charter that the territory gave, and was able to teach college courses for a while. Quit doing that when other colleges started, because it was the first college here in the territory until UNM and others started.
Yeah, you provided me with that tape that the College of Santa Fe did with the history of the brothers at the college, and it was phenomenal. They must have educated 4 out of 5 of the leaders of this state for over the last 100 years. It seemed like they were.
Even the very first state legislature in 1912, I think something like it was either 40% or 60% of the people had gone to what was St. Michael's High School. Yeah. Maybe have gotten some college courses. That's what was St. Michael's High School. But yeah, there's been a lot of influence.
Let's go back to the kids today. What have you seen coming out? What are some of the problems that families at home that are trying to be supportive of their children or families that are going to college? What kind of advice would you have for them? I mean, given the pressures there, and how can they be supportive of family and friends who are attempting to go to college today?
Yeah, I'd say probably one of the main things is to give them a sense of that you want them to make their choice in terms of college and in terms of what they're doing at the college, and that you're backing that up, and not just financially, of course, but that you're backing up what their choices are, and that if they make a little mistake, not a mistake, but if they make one choice and go one way and say, well, maybe this isn't really what I want to do, they can go another direction, and that's fine, Maybe parents don't want to hear this if, again, we're talking about traditional age students, but, very few students now go to college and graduate in 4 years. Now, it isn't because they all change, but just things happen, and, you find out you want to take extra courses, or there's all kind of reasons that. So I think the main thing would be to be supportive, knowing that they want to feel independent, but they don't mind that little apron string still being there, that they know their parents are behind them.
Mm-hmm. And I also picked up an associate arts degree before I went off to 4-year college. So how advantageous is that? I mean, when students are trying to figure out, is that worth getting or not? What has been your experience or your advice to students when they're trying to decide whether that's an advantage to them in the workplace?
Yeah, I would say, again, looking at the traditional students, most of them, of course, will go to college immediately after high school. But I would say if a person, has any doubts about continuing right away, and it's not a bad idea to get a little bit of other experience. And that might even be a work experience, even for a year or something like that. And I especially recommend that if it's between, say, getting a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. But even maybe prior to a bachelor's degree, getting some kind of experience so you get a little sense of what you want rather than jumping in right away. And I know that's not the traditional way that most people approach college, but it's not a bad idea to get some kind of experience. Now, you may have that in high school. You may have a job in high school, or you may have gone off to Europe for a summer or something like that. So you're getting a sense of what you want. So I'm not putting it hard and fast. Yeah. But I think a little bit of experience before you do your full college depth might not be a bad idea.
Yeah. I was always wondering, have you ever had the experience of a former student or something coming back and giving you any feedback from advice you've given or just things they've learned and what was valuable to them?
Yeah, and I suspect that most teachers have that. You know, somebody that may have been even a pain in the neck, not necessarily, but may have been, comes back 20 years later and say, boy, brother, or whoever, you know, I really remember, you know, you really helped me out, and you don't remember, you maybe remember the student when they introduce themselves, but how did I help that person? But somehow or another, you did something, and the same thing was with a campus minister. Yeah, I've had that, you know, people who come back to me 20 years later and say, you know, I'm really glad you were campus minister when I was at such and such a place, you know, and it helped. I don't know why, but they know.
So sometimes just having someone else to talk to, you know, say other than a parent or a spouse or even a child, I mean, what you're planning to do and what's going on, sometimes just an objective voice. In your experience from a spiritual perspective, how do you see God working in their lives when they're going through or struggling? What part of your spiritual life is the struggle to decide what I'm going to do with my life?
Yeah, I think, yeah, their struggle, and very often maybe they don't identify it as a spiritual struggle. But I think that's where a minister or a campus minister like myself can come in. They talk about something that I'm struggling with such and such in my life, you know. And they don't, as I said, they don't necessarily see it as a spiritual struggle, or certainly not necessarily as a religious struggle. But there is that component. And I try and show them, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with that being part of the component. That they have a certain sense of, oh yeah, well, okay, that's what spirituality kind of means. You know, it's fuzzy, but if you can talk to them a bit about that, oh yeah, I see how that can be a spiritual component, you know. And let me just relate something, because people will say, well, they may say, I'm interested in spirituality, you know, but I'm not interested in religion, you know. I mean, you get that.
I hear that all the time.
A lot, you know. And that's all right. But what I do is give them a sense of, okay, that's true. I mean, I'm not going to push you into religion or something like that. But just as, for instance, in terms of your physical life, you know, you could grow your own food, but you go to a grocery store and buy food. In terms of your intellectual life, you could get books and learn all kind of things that you need to know. Or you can go to college or school. Spirituality. Yes, you can learn your own spirituality, but you can also find a religion that is supportive of that. So I try and show them that there's a connection there.
How about differences between men and women? Have you noticed any difference, the types of pressures or concerns when they come to you as a campus minister? Are there things along gender lines or along age lines? What have you seen?
Along gender lines, I would say nothing different than maybe what the ordinary difference of gender